Hello, and welcome to Not Now in Theaters. My name is Will Turntail, and I'm a writer and film fan from California. This week's episode returns to my John Carpenter series. We're looking at one of the Master of Horror's final films, Vampires. It's the movie that says, to hell with all that gothic fantasy vampire drama, and just goes for the throat with an action horror western. It was John Carpenter's most commercially successful movie of the 1990s, but it divides the fan base. So I'm excited to explore it with you and share where I come down on it and why. Before we start, a reminder that making films is hard and you have to respect that. So any criticisms are meant to be constructive. There are some spoilers in this review. I'll let you know where they are so you can skip them if you want to. Okay, let's get into the movie. John Carpenter's Vampires review. Evil lives, but misogyny never dies. Oh, John Carpenter's Vampires. In the 90s, goth went commercial. It delivered Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire, Coppola's adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula, and the Wesley Snipes comic book actioner, Blade. And Carpenter, the horror master, wasn't to be left out. He brought his own take on the fabled fanged bloodsuckers. I last saw this movie in 1998, when I rented it from a video store. Yep, old enough. My mixed feelings about it at the time are now definite concerns. The gore disgusted me then, but now I've lived through 2 recessions and a pandemic. So while it's not my thing to split someone in half, use your practical and CG splatter effects, if you must. What turns my stomach today are the base and unimaginative ways the film tries to depict its vampire slayers as Western film badasses. But this is a John Carpenter movie, and his filmmaking fingerprints are all over it. There's some undeniable quality injected into the mix. It was his most profitable film of the 90s, generally breaking even at the American box office, but doing well overseas. And it is rumored to have cleared a cool $40 million in home video rentals. So do we have a guilty pleasure for mature audiences, or a schlocky machismo that'll slap you silly? Let's find out. Is Vampires a good movie? The plot of John Carpenter's Vampires. In New Mexico, Jack Crow and his vampire hunters attack a nest of not quite Nosferatus, aggressive, undead bloodsuckers who snarl a lot and take a beating to subdue. Slay hard, play hard. When the killing's done and the sun goes down, Crow and his crew, including Tony, Don't Call Me Montana Montoya, party at a motel with plenty of alcohol and prostitutes, including one named Katrina. But an uninvited guest crashes. Jan Valak, a master vampire with incredible power, bites Katrina and lays waste to everyone in his path. Crow and Montoya, dragging along Katrina, manage to escape. But things only get worse. They learn Valak is after a game-changing relic and suspect they were set up. With the team dismembered, can Crow and Montoya regroup, find the conspirator, and stop Valak and his vampire horde? And to take you through the cast of this movie, Jack Crow is played by James Woods. Tony Montoya is played by Daniel Baldwin. Katrina is played by Cheryl Lee. Thomas Ian Griffith plays Jan Valak, the Master Vampire. And you can read the rest of the main cast here in the transcript. And if you'd like to check out a trailer for Vampires, I put a link to it down in the links in this episode section of the transcript. I also added any other links from the transcript, including lots of movie clips that are free on YouTube, and screenshots from IMDb down there as well. So let's get into what I liked about this movie. First, it's the lore and the gear, which gets 5 points. If you're building a story about vampires, you must lay down the lore. Your version of the vampiric rules, and you need to set the tone of that lore, serious and brooding, or campy and punctuated. You can only be partially original with such saturated material. Still, the film's mythos and rules are a nicely stripped down version, suiting the grounded tone. These vampires are mean and want to suck your blood. They keep their numbers low to avoid discovery. You can kill them with sunlight or a stake in the heart. It's clean and simple, down and dirty world building. And the Slayers aren't overdramatic gunslingers with dual-wielding pistols to highly stylized bullet effects, nor are they a clan of scientific Van Helsings or shamans with holy water and garlic. They're exterminators. The Slayers roll up in an armored car and wake the vampires one by one. They drag them outside with a winch cable attached to a jeep and torch them to death in the sun. Or they impale them with spears, holding them in place while a crew member drives a stake through their heart. And they have strict rules to hunt by, like not letting your partner live if they're bitten. It's a no coffin, no nonsense approach. Next, we have to mention the sunburned aesthetic, which adds 3 points. As a Western, the film makes the most of its New Mexico setting. Crowe and Montoya drift through wide shots of dusty skies, abandoned trucks, and dry mountains in the distance. Somewhere in the desert, under red clouds, we watch Valak and his crew of vampires rise from soft dirt, the black and crimson continuing as they saunter forward in a loose hunting formation. It's a shot out of a music video. And Carpenter's skill with building tension comes through. Before the opening raid on a vampire nest, the editing flips through a triangle of 3 recurring images to raise anticipation. Crowe's team arm themselves for the fight, donning chainmail armor about the neck or slipping wooden stakes into utility belts. There are shots of the farmhouse door, where the vampires lurk, each image inching closer and closer to the door handle. And we get close-ups of Crowe as he's fixated on the door, his mind no doubt on the fight he knows, and we know, is coming. And now it is see ya in extra crispy hell, which adds 3 points. When the vampires get dragged into the sun, little pockets of fire break out until they burst into vivid flames. It appears a mix of practical effects and stunt work pulls off the scenes, and they still look realistic. And the vampires' subtle makeup effects give them a fear factor. Valak looks pale and has weathered skin lines. Katrina is turning into a vampire by the red discoloration gathering around her eyes. So now let's get into the not as good things. First up, it is the movie's posturing bullies, which takes away 2 points. Forget the vampire conflict for a moment. This film has a message for you, one it wants to ram home. And I double emphasize the word ram. You must accept that Grizzled Crowe and his greasy sidekick Montoya are badasses. Don't question it. Don't you ever fucking question it. Okay? You know those people who ignore safety protocols just because? Just out of pure denial of best practices? Like people that handle dangerous shit but don't wear gloves, or workers who sand things down but don't wear eyeglasses or a mask because cancer risk from inhaling those dusty bits can go fuck itself. That's the kind of men Crowe and Montoya are. They give Father Adam a bite-negating neck collar and a suit of full body armor, yet barely take a blip of protection for themselves. They slip on a glove, presumably to prevent crossbow-wielding calluses, but other than that, it's time to light up a cigarette and be ready to battle hell's best. Carpenter cast James Woods as Crowe because he didn't want a cliched, muscle-bound guy in the part, thinking audiences would believe Woods could chew the leg off a vampire. As a creative choice, you can understand the idea in theory, and I give Carpenter credit for going against the obvious type. If you squint hard enough, you can ignore the optics of a spindly Crowe strolling about in his high-waisted jeans and slip into Woods' bellicose hard-ass with a vendetta against the long-fanged bloodthirsties. In a massive shock, Gene Siskel put Woods' performance on his list for the Best Actor Oscar suggestion for 1998. I'd never go that far, but had the film played it quietly, not hyper-focusing on the character, Woods' performance is ramped up enough that I could buy into his brand of fury. But John Carpenter's Vampires doesn't do subtle. It's got one gear, and that's smacking you in the face. Take the moment where Crowe finishes the nasty work of dismembering the bodies of his former team so they can't rise again as vampires. When finished, he drags on yet another cigarette, dramatically drops his Zippo lighter, and walks away from an exploding building. Supposedly lesser humans would run the hell away from all that fiery debris, but Crowe wiggle walks out of there. Why leave the Zippo and not a match? We'll never know. I distinctly remember this moment on my first watch as a 14-year-old, even then debating whether I could embrace the film's gaunt poster man of masculinity as an idol. Then there's Daniel Baldwin's Montoya, a pig whose game is just treating everyone like shit. Even in a moment as benign as checking into a hotel room, he cops a massive attitude to the clerk, swearing at him. It's bizarre. And they both make a lot of dumb, homophobic sex jokes. Crow beats up Father Adam and asks him if getting knocked about gave him a bit of an erection. Father Adam assures Crow of his athleticism by telling him he was captain of the college soccer team, and Crow, on cue, cringes at the word soccer. He muses that now they are genuinely in trouble. But even if you find the two's brand of bullying and depraved jokes amusing, we reach a point where it goes too far. Crow and Montoya lay a few slaps on Katrina, whom they've brought along due to her psychic link to Valak. Maybe the idea is that, in their eyes, because she's been bitten, she no longer has any human rights. But it's blatant and pretty damn uncomfortable. Montoya, left alone with Katrina, ties her up on the bed and duct tapes over her mouth, perhaps so she cannot escape. Fine, but Montoya has taken off all her clothes, a moment you know because the cinematography lingers on a long shot of the bed, Montoya looming over her. Horror movies have a long history of exploiting women, but it's a real letdown from Carpenter. Nudity is one thing, but he's more talented than needing to resort to abuse against women to characterize two misanthropes. And the action? Let's edit that out, a decision that takes away 2 points. After one or two slangs, the opening raid becomes a montage of vampires getting winch dragged into the sunlight. Why not make these scenes more drawn out? You've got the horror master at the helm. Walk down some dark hallways. Do some jump scares if you have to, but show us more of this harrowing line of work. And the film incorporates dissolves to transition between scenes, which is fine. But when Valak exacts revenge, ripping through Crow's team, the film starts dissolving moment by moment within the fight, slipping into a slightly surreal haze. And the ho-hum attitude toward the fighting comes back for the finale. As we watch the vampires flee Crow and crew's attack, it's a half-hearted, cut-heavy affair. This filmmaking technique is effective when your movie needs to show exposition that the audience already knows, such as a character traveling somewhere uneventfully. But to gloss over your action showpieces with it, it's bizarre. It's like the editor or Carpenter just got bored with them. And now it's how the movie left me wishing for more, which takes away 2 points. Vampires is a mystery/road trip for the second act, the longest part of the film, and it's bookended by the opening raid and the final showdown with Valak. So while that's functional, it's a bit lackluster in terms of action. Funding cuts may have played a role here. The movie was initially budgeted at $60 million, but it was reduced to $20 million at the last minute. Carpenter and film executive/screenwriter Michael DeLuca reworked some existing scripts into the final product to accommodate the changes. But even with tight purse strings, the film could have taken place in one or fewer settings, perhaps as a siege film similar to Carpenter's Assault on Precinct 13. Think one big raid gone wrong on a hefty vampire nest in a New Mexico town. That might have given us more conflict and set pieces between Crow and the Bloodsuckers. Next, this one is called Whoops, Double Whoops, and it takes off a point. And a minor spoilers alert here, you can use the chapter skip if you'd rather not hear it. It's a nitpick, but it's silly that Crow gets taken captive by Valak, in part because he's lost track of time, caught off guard as the sun goes down. If it's your job to slay vampires, of all the rules and protocols you have, cutting out well before nightfall would have to be a number one on that list. But don't worry, Master Vampire Valak seems to do the same thing. For whatever reason, he too is performing his dark ritual just before sunrise. And then, when it gets foiled, he and his vampire horde are like, oh shit, here comes the sun. And we don't mean the Beatles. Sometimes movies have to be unrealistic to work. For example, criminals often capture and monologue to the heroes rather than do the real-world thing of putting a bullet in them. This allows the plot to continue and/or enables the hero and villain to meet before the finale. But Crow and Valak's mistakes with the sunset and sunrise are so boneheaded, it's jarring. Lastly, we have our lackluster villain, which takes away a point. Valak isn't painted with Gothic-style vampire film cliches. The movie pivots from the tortured soul, living forever isn't very fun after all, I want to suck your blood themes. And that's good. But while he'll tear you in two, he's not entertaining. We don't get to know what he's about other than surviving. Does he want to enslave humanity? Does he have a grudge against the Catholic Church? He's the big bad only because he's the big bad. He needed something worth his scheme and eventual takedown. So Vampires scores 3 points. On my scale of let's not watch, should I watch, or go watch this movie, I'm going to give it my should I watch rating. Vampires was John Carpenter's most commercially successful movie of the 90s, a bright spot in a troubled decade for the filmmaker. And you don't have to search the internet too deeply to find the film's fans. But it's always divided opinion, and you can understand why. The film is a beautifully shot blend of Western and horror. It has some fun vampire lore, as in the lack of lore, and neat production/special effects. But you must buy into the antics of two brazen, offensive tough guys. The villain could be more compelling, and the fights against the vampires are too few. Worst of all, the movie slips into some misogynistic moments. While it has its merits and a fan base, it's not my favorite. If only it were the pulpy-looking movie depicted on its Blu-ray release, with this leaping vampire executing a frog-style attack and a crew ready to take them down. The guy on the left of the cover, with the red band around his head, reminds me of Corey Feldman's character from The Lost Boys, which opens up an amazing version of this movie. Can you imagine if somehow, in some universe, Jack Crow was teaming up with those Slayer kids from The Lost Boys at the comic shop? And I have a link to this photo in the transcript at the bottom if you want to see it. But yeah, I wish the film were more tongue-in-cheek with its misguided protagonists and spent more time walking down the dark, narrow corridors of abandoned farmhouses to find some vampires to drag into the sunlight. Carpenter certainly had those capabilities, and if only that direction had been taken. The legacy of John Carpenter's vampires. So what's the legacy of John Carpenter's vampires? The film, at the time of writing, has a 43% critical and 47% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. It has those fans out there, but the majority have spoken. Some critics had it on their best of the year lists, others had it on their worst of the year lists. Gene Siskel gave it 4 out of 4 stars and said Woods should be nominated for the Academy Award. Just further proof to me that yes, film and all art is subjective, and that yes, just because you're a respected critic doesn't mean you know what you're saying. I don't think it's a stretch to say overwhelmingly critics and audiences found fault and flaws with this movie, or that there would be a more deserving performance for the Oscar than James Woods acting like an asshole. Still, Vampires opened to number 1 at the domestic box office, petering out after making back about its budget, but succeeded on home video and internationally. The film did quite well in Japan, so it is said to be the only financially successful Carpenter movie from the 1990s. Again, I said financially. There are some good movies that he did. It's also one of Carpenter's last movies. I mean, after this, he made Ghosts of Mars in 2001, which was his retirement, I'm done with this shit moment. Although he strangely returned for The Ward in 2010, which we'll discuss when I write a retrospective of all John Carpenter films. Making this film sounds like it didn't go that easily. Halfway through production, Carpenter left the movie because of creative interference. So Greg Nicotero, who was handling special makeup effects, took over for a few days until they could bring Carpenter back. Something you might not know, the film is adapted from a book, John Steakley's 1990 novel Vampires, also written as Vampire $, with that money sign there for the S. It's about a company called Vampire $Inc., once again with that $sign there for the S. It's kind of annoying. And the business is in the vampire hunting business. Like in the book, funded by the Roman Catholic Church as well as payments from the vampire's potential victims. I read the plot summary, and it's a lot different from the movie. There is the same setup of clearing out a nest and having a party that gets crashed by a master vampire. But from there, it all becomes about silver bullets and making a vampire detector. So it seems that Carpenter kept the idea of hunters and ran with everything else. One difference I loved, instead of Montoya, Crow's lieutenant is named Cherry Cat Catlin, which I gotta say Montoya can piss off. I have no idea what Cherry Cat is like, but I want me some Cherry Cat Catlin in the movie. Author John Steakley said he liked the movie, but commented that while it contains a lot of his dialogue, it lacks his plot. At the 25th Saturn Awards, the movie won for Best Music thanks to Carpenter's score. James Woods won Best Actor, and the movie got Best Makeup. It was also nominated for Best Horror Film and then Best Supporting Actress for Sheryl Lee. Wikipedia, citing a missing source, states that Carpenter has also mentioned that Gary Keebe was shortlisted for Best Cinematography at the 71st Academy Awards. The 1998 Stinkers Bad Movie Awards honored, or maybe you'd say dishonored, Daniel Baldwin with a win for Worst Supporting Actor. I think that's pretty unfair to him. He does all the same nasty machismo James Woods does, yet Woods wins a Saturn Award. Go figure. I had to look up the Stinkers Bad Movie Awards because I thought they were some random internet awards or something, but they actually predated the Razzies, so there you go. The movie has 2 direct-to-video sequels, Vampires Los Muertos from 2002 and Vampires The Turning from 2005. This makes a lot of sense. Since the first film broke even at the theaters and killed it on video, why not just go straight to video? But what's funny is that in the first sequel, Los Muertos, Jon Bon Jovi is now our hero. It's a different character, a guy named Derek Bliss. I have to wonder if Derek Bliss is friendly? I mean, with a name like Derek Bliss, you have to be the opposite of nasty, woman-slapping, homophobic Jack Crow. It's worth saying Carpenter did produce Los Muertos, and his longtime friend and collaborator, Tommy Lee Wallace, directed it. But yeah, it has a not promising 20% rating based on 5 reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. And from watching its trailer, it seems like the video sequel you'd expect. But what's funny is that the third movie, Vampires The Turning, had no involvement from Carpenter. Almost like The Turning meant turning away instead of turning into a vampire. Turning away from the other 2 movies. It seems to have no connection to the first 2 movies. Its Wikipedia page says that it's a martial arts film. It's about a kickboxer in Thailand whose girlfriend gets bitten and then fights a bunch of vampires. I'm really curious how this came out to be, but not curious enough to even Google it, so we're just gonna move on. There are many permutations of what vampires could have been before the version we got. At first, Largo Entertainment acquired the rights and had director Russell Mulcahy attached. That's the guy who made Highlander. They were going to have it star Dolph Lundgren as Crow, with rumors circulating that Willem Dafoe was being considered for another role, likely Valak. But there were all kinds of drafts, including one set entirely at the Vatican with a vampire pope, and another version where it was a high-tech future and vampires were completely commonplace, with hunters just like your regular police force. But all that stuff, spinning off in many directions, fell away. Then there were disagreements between Maliki and the studio, so he left, taking Dolph Lundgren with him for another film, something I've never heard of called Silent Trigger. And I'm not trying to be unkind to Mr. Lundgren here, but I think that's funny. It's like you and your partner break up, and while they're moving out of the apartment, they just take something they think you really want while they're walking out the door to try and spite you. But it's dumb and petty because you don't really care. It's like they grab your precious coffee maker, thinking this is going to go so bad for you, not realizing it's a worn out piece of shit and that you've got a pour over ready to go. Mr. Lundgren isn't a worn out piece of shit. I quite like him. But if Maliki told the studio, yeah, well fine, but Dolph is coming with me, that's funny. Anyhow, Largo Entertainment approached Carpenter and landed him. Carpenter was said to be considering quitting filmmaking because he was coming off the back of Escape from LA, and as he put it, it stopped being fun. But Largo's project intrigued him. He had always wanted to make a movie that mixed horror and Western together, and he liked the potential in the story that reminded him of his filmmaking hero, director Howard Hawks' movies. Before casting James Woods, the film's Wikipedia page says Carpenter had considered Clint Eastwood, Kurt Russell, Bill Paxton, Al Pacino, Joe Pesci, and R. Lee Ermey. Now, if R. Lee Ermey is not a name you know, it's probably a face you know. That's Sergeant Hartman, the wicked hard-ass drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket. All of those actors are said to have either declined or had scheduling conflicts, with Ermey being rejected by the studio because they didn't think he had star power for a blockbuster. I gotta go with the studio on this one. But can you imagine taking those names of actors to play Crow? Clint Eastwood giving a steak to a vampire, late 1990s Clint Eastwood saying something extra gravelly as he does so, would be epic. And Kurt Russell as Jack Crow would bring something altogether different than James Woods. I don't know if he'd go with Snake Plissken Jack Crow or Big Trouble in Little China Jack Burton Jack Crow. Either would be fun. But some of those other names, I mean, Bill Paxton yelling, "Game over, man," as the vampires come out of the ground. Can't see it. Al Pacino, I would love to see an over-the-top Al Pacino take on vampires. Give him a line like, "Here's a steak from my heart to yours," and just let him do whatever. Hoo-wah, as he's stabbing vampires. How amazing. Then Joe Pesci. That's like Harry from Home Alone vampires. Tommy from Goodfellas vampires. I don't know what that is. And Arlie Ermey, man, that's just insane to think of him as the vampire hunter. If it were a B movie, I would actually be up for him whipping vampire ass while whipping his squad of hunters into shape. And it was actually Alec Baldwin who was going to play Montoya, but he had to drop out. He must have said, "Well, why don't you just take my brother Daniel?" And as far as I can tell, they did. But IMDb's trivia page says that Bruce Campbell was Carpenter's first choice for Montoya. And what a massive upgrade that would have been. No disrespect to Daniel Baldwin, but we're talking Ash here. And a fun fact for you, screenwriter-director Frank Darabont, The Shawshank Redemption, The Green Mile, has a cameo at a gas station. Why? From what I could find, it was just because the two directors liked each other's work. Okay, that's everything I have. Thank you so much for listening. And what do you think? Have you seen Vampires? Is it better than I give it credit for? You can reach out and let me know on Blue Sky using the link in the transcript, or just search for Will Turntale. If you liked this episode, please leave me a review wherever you're listening from, if you haven't done that already. I'm hoping to expand this podcast and connect with more movie fans, and all reviews make a massive difference. Or if you're listening on YouTube, please like and subscribe. New episodes of this podcast roll out on Tuesdays. I am not sure on next week's episode just yet. It may be The Blog versus The Mist, but I think that's coming out the week after. Most likely, it will be my reaction to David Cronenberg's thriller Scanners, that movie where the psychics have crazy brain battles that light people on fire or make them full-on explode from the intensity. Believe it or not, I'd actually never seen that movie, which was a big omission in my cult classic type of movies library. So tune in next week for one of those. This podcast episode is production copyright of Overegged Media, LLC, located in Sacramento, California. Reference photos linked in the transcript are copyrighted by the Internet Movie Database. This review's factual information was gathered through online sources like Wikipedia, IMDb, or interviews. Misrepresentations and errors are possible, but unintentional. The introduction music was Neon Laser Horizon by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. The exit music was Voxel Revolution by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. The additional music, Feral Angel Waltz and Aerosol of My Love, also by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com, also licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. Goodbye for now.